Hello and welcome to my January reading plans. So this basket is full of the books that are all possibilities for me to get to in the month of January. So for January, there are a couple buddy reads, read-alongs, and book clubs that I am involved in. So the first thing that I want to share is Epistolary January. I will be sure to leave all of the information below. I know that my friend Jen is a co-host this year, so I am really excited to join in that read-along. I have chosen 3 books to read just as epistolary novels. They've been on my list for a while, and I now have a perfect reason to get to them. So the first one I actually grabbed from the library. This is Yours in the Tower by Sally Nichols. This is a YA epistolary novel, and I've heard it being compared to like a Downton Abbey or a more wholesome Bridgerton idea. So we have 3 friends. We have Tirza, Polly, and Sophia, and it is set in an English boarding school in 1896, and these girls leave and go out to kind of develop themselves, to strike out on their own. We have one who's in London, one who's in Liverpool, and one who goes to Scotland. And these girls share letters back and forth to each other where we kind of learn about the drama and the challenges and the beauty of life. I've heard really great things about this, and so I'm really looking forward to diving into this month. And then next, going chronologically, I have The Last Christmas in Paris by Hazel Gaynor and Heather Webb. This is set during World War I. We have Evie and her brother Will, and then Will's friend Thomas. And Will and Thomas end up having to go join up in the war and to fight. They end up writing letters to each other. And originally, I thought that this would be a perfect kind of transition from within Christmastide into January, but come to find out, it's actually not set at Christmas, I don't think. I think the Christmas idea is like this sort of like prize if they can get to the end of the war. So I think when they first leave, they think, oh, this is not going to be very long. We will get together at Christmas, the war will be over, and we'll celebrate Christmas in Paris. And as we know, the war obviously was longer than that, but they strike up. I think there's like romance in this. I think it's a pretty heartwarming tale. I did love The Last Bookshop in London by Madeline Martin. There's obviously the comparison to the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society book that just is so acclaimed. But this one I think is a little bit softer, maybe even than both of those two, but I'm not 100% sure. But it is set as letters back and forth, so that will be another epistolary novel that I plan on reading. And then next we have World War II, and that is Codename Verity. Again, this has been on my list of books that I have wanted to read for a long time. I've heard really great things about it. So I found a used copy on Thrift Books, and I figured I would add this into the Epistolary January theme. I also have a historical fiction theme going on, so this fits right in there. So as I mentioned, this is set in World War II. My understanding of this is Verity is a spy. She's been caught, and she is sort of writing out her confession. And this also includes letters and correspondence with a pilot named Maddie. I think Maddie and Verity have a friendship. So Verity's like telling this story through writing out her confession. The interesting thing about this is Elizabeth Wine is a pilot herself. And so having the author be a pilot means that there are some technical aspects to this when you have Maddie as a pilot. So I think there are technical descriptions of flights and the actual planes and that whole process. So I think that is an interesting aspect to this book that I am looking forward to. I think this has the themes of friendship and sacrifice. And obviously, if someone's writing a confession, they're, that's a hard place to be in as well. And so I'm sure we will get some depth there as well. So those are the 3 epistolary novels that I have planned for this month. But I'm not done with historical fiction. So I have a couple reading friends of mine who invited me to join them in reading Alone in Berlin, or also Every Man Dies Alone by Hans Fallada. And this is has such an intriguing backstory to it. So this follows the true story based on Gestapo files of a couple named Otto and Elise Hempel. I do think that they changed the names in the book, but it is based on them. And they lost their only son in the Nazi regime. They ended up creating little postcards that would say things like, mother, mother, don't forget your son could be dying for this cause. Are you sure you really believe in it? And they put these anti-regime anonymous postcards up throughout Berlin. This was originally published in 1948. It is an important piece of German resistance literature, and for it to have been published so soon after World War II was a very powerful moment. But the interesting thing I find is that Hans Fallada himself, you would think for someone who did pen some of the most, what is considered to be one of the most important German resistance literature, or at least the beginnings of it, available. He himself is not blameless. He even said that he did not do enough during the war. He possibly even supported the Nazis. He was an addict. He wrote this in only 24 days. A lot of interesting background on the author himself, which I just think just adds to the conversation that we find ourselves having a lot lately about, when you have a piece of literature that has value, does it lose its value based on an author and the author's flaws or shortcomings, or whatever challenges they might be facing, or does that literature itself stand up regardless? It's just such an interesting dialogue, I think, and this, I think, is a good example of it. So, as I mentioned, I had friends who reached out and said, hey, do you want to read this together? And as we talked about it, I did ask Dina, who sort of head up the whole thing, like, what triggers are there, just so that I could be aware. And the ones that she mentioned, really, it's like, well, if this is like a true hard-hitting, based on a true story, war novel, then these are all aspects to that. Keeping it realistic and credible is important. And so it's sort of like that would be expected in it. And so I'm excited to read it. I have a little bit of apprehension, obviously, because I do think it is going to have some very dense, heavy subject matter, but it will be fabulous to read it with this group of women and just have that support to be able to share dialogue together about it. Another historical fiction that's really the theme, I am planning to read Pam Jenoff's The Orphan's Tale. This is the first Pam Jenoff that I will have read. It is not the first one that has been in my house. I've had library books of hers that I have checked out, but I've never actually read any of them. So I have been saving this because the cover is very wintry. So this is based on the true story of the unknown children and the circus Althoff, which sheltered Jews. So in this we have Noah and Astrid. Noah, in a sort of impulsive, I think, moment, she takes a baby from a train car that has Jewish people on it that is bound for the concentration camps. And she takes the baby and then passes the baby off as her own. And Astrid is Jewish and is part of this circus. And so there is a history of unknown children who were taken. And I guess we'll see within this, but I could imagine, I'm going to get emotional, but if I were in that situation, I would also want to save my children and would be willing to trust someone who says that they would be able to raise my child safely in the face of what other options were there. And so this, I think, happened with a lot of children. And then this circus was known for sheltering Jewish people. I also have the audio version of this, so I may listened to it more than actually reading this copy. But I think Astrid, who is part of this circus, really gets protective of Noah and the baby. And I'm sure there's like points when they're concerned about being found out and peril in that way. So not something I know that much about. And so I'm interested in reading this historical fiction this month. Let's move the tea so that I can pile up the books. Okay. Next, for the Cozy Reader Book Club, we have Penny Plain by O. Douglas. Isn't this just the tiniest little book? When I ordered it, I did not look closely at the measurements and did not realize that it was a teeny tiny little book, but it is just such a beautiful little copy. This is my first O. Douglas. My friend Elizabeth and even Michael have both said that if you want a cozy book, O. Douglas is where it's at. So I'm excited to try this. It is on Kindle. You can either find a huge omnibus of O. Douglas's works in a Kindle version that's, I think, nominal. It's like $1 or $2. But I actually found Penny Plain for free, and I've actually since then had a couple of her other books come through as free. I will probably just put this on my shelf and actually read the e-version of this. This is considered or called a Cinderella story, and our main character is Jean Jardine. She is a young Scottish female who is raising her siblings. I think they're her 2 brothers. There's something about somebody who asks her for hospitality. I think it's a heartwarming tale. I think there's a lot of slice of Scottish village life in here. I think there's a lot of tea drinking and cottages and, this like old-fashioned flair. And it is written in some dialect. I think that will be interesting. Sometimes I struggle with that, but I'm sure once I get started in it, it'll be okay. Oh, this book smells so lovely. Just an old book. Anyway, I'm excited to read this with our Cozy Reader Book Club and get everyone's input on it. And I will be sure to leave all of the information below if you want to join us on the 3rd Saturday of the month virtually to talk about Penny Plain. Next, I am going to read Gil Hornby's Godmersham Park. I have another of hers, Miss Austen, and I think it's been in the Cozy Reader Book Club that people have had differing opinions about that and not the most glowing things to say. So now I'm a little concerned about Godmersham Park, but I did intentionally find this cover because I thought it looked so lovely. I did just finish a Miss Austen Investigates by Jessica Bull and learned a lot about the Austen family and sort of have formed my opinions and expectations and perceptions of them based on that. All good, to be honest, mostly good. Anyway, I am so concerned after reading some of the reviews on this that we're going to deviate from that, and that is potentially going to make me not enjoy this as much, but I am committed because I do want to read this, and it is set in January. It starts with, at 6:30 in the bleak, icy evening of the 21st of January in the year of 1804, Anne Sharp arrived on the threshold of Godmersham Park. So, perfect time to read this. Anne is acting as a governess for Jane's niece, Fanny, who is Edward's oldest daughter. And Jane and Henry arrive. Again, the reviews of this have said that Jane herself is a very strong and wonderful character in this, which in Miss Austen Investigates, that's not completely the case. So I'm hoping that that will redeem this as I go along in it. Next, I have yet another historical fiction, and that is The Shadowy Horses by Susanna Kearsley. I have read other Susanna Kearsleys. The Winter Sea was my favorite book of the year that I read it. I've enjoyed the other Susanna Kearsleys, and I found this used in a little bookshop in rural Nevada and scooped it up because it's in the same style as the other books of hers that I have. And while this isn't part of a series, it is connected to The Winter Sea and Firebird because Robbie McMarron and also the Roman soldier are in this. So this actually has Robbie when he's younger, But again, the way that she has written them, I don't think you have to read them in order. And this actually doesn't even show up in Goodreads as being part of the series, even though you have the same characters or some of the same characters in this. Susanna Kearsley is known for writing paranormal historical fiction. So there are elements to this that are not straight historical fiction. There's a bit of moving throughout time that she does really creatively. And then the Roman soldier is the paranormal aspect of this. So this is, I believe, set in at a Scottish archaeological dig, and it is relating to the Ninth Roman Legion. So typically she does 2 timelines, and in my experience, you're much more attached to the past timeline than the present one. So we will see. But it does have a character in here. The main character, I think, is named Verity, which is such a cute connection to a codename Verity. So anyway, I love Susanna Kearsley. I think she is a perfect author for slow winter nights because it's not usually really an intense read. It's much more of a like slow development, slow burn, internal monologue type of writing style. All right. I next have Marilyn Robinson's Housekeeping. I have read Gilead by her. And again, I think if you're looking for like a good winter book, I loved Gilead. In fact, there is a pretty memorable winter scene in it. But while you are dancing around really heavy topics, she does have this, it's just a very sort of quiet voice. And I really enjoyed Gilead. It is a book that we read for our Cozy Reader Book Club a couple years ago. And when I found Housekeeping in a little free library, I grabbed that up. And again, with the way that the cover is, I was like, well, this is a perfect book to read in winter. So in this, we have Ruthie and Lucille, who become orphans, and it seems like they are sort of passed around to the women that are kind of in their circle of life. So it's relatives, it's maybe distant relatives, it is somebody, a mentor or somebody who played a big impactful role in their lives that they end up living with and being supported by. I do think that while Housekeeping and kind of seeing them like moving around, I think there is like a domestic element to this. But my understanding is there is also a spiritual metaphor in this as well for housekeeping, which is interesting. There is also a connection to Ralph Waldo Emerson's transcendentalism as well. So seems like a lot of pretty heavy themes in this for a book that is pretty thin. I'm guessing it's less than 200 pages or maybe right at 200 pages. Yeah, 215 pages. So just because it's thin doesn't mean that it's going to be a fast read. But I am looking forward to reading this month as well. And then this is an idea that I had recently and thought, I'm just going to put this in the pile. And I want to start chipping away at Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray. I have not read this. I actually have managed to avoid any movie adaptations or television series of this, which I think is, just knowing how many they are, is pretty hard to believe. But I haven't seen it and I have not yet read it. And so having this experience of picking this up and not knowing that much about it, and I kind of want to keep it that way. I have heard about Becky Sharp. I think she is a social climber. I think people love her more than they love her foil, Amelia Sedley, who is like virtuous. And because it's, if Becky Sharp is so vivacious, I'm assuming Amelia is like much more quiet. And I think this is a social commentary. I know that it was published, it was serialized. I mean, that's kind of apparent. In like 1848 to 1849, it was printed in 20 different parts. And I will most likely be doing this as an immersion reading experience where I will be sitting by, hopefully, a snowy window reading this as well as listening to it as an audiobook as well. So both at the same time. And I have no pressure about that I want it done this month. I'm going to just, like I said, chip away at it. It is 950 pages. Unless I like fall in love with it and I'm like, forget everything else, I'm just going to read this, which could happen. My plan will be to just kind of read through it at a slow pace. And it's kind of how I read Bleak House, where it was slow. I did audio and physical copy together. And I just feel like taking your time in really thick books is important because I think it helps to kind of like solidify everything and make a more memorable experience. So I'm going to start Vanity Fair. So let me know, of the books that I have shared, which books maybe you've read and have loved or did not like, or which books would you kind of move to the top of the pile and, read them first. And then let me know if you have read Vanity Fair, because I know a lot of you probably have. So let me know what your thoughts are, any pitfalls that I need to be warned of, or just let me know you're going to love it too. So thanks so much for watching. I would love to know what you're reading this month, so please leave that in the comments below as well. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.